It's the final sprint race of the F1 Fantasy 2024 season. So that means chips are going to get played. How are we going to go about that? Let's find out. What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of F1 Fantasy Pole Position. It is Friday, November 29th. Belated happy Thanksgiving to all the American viewers. And yeah, welcome to the Qatar Grand Prix preview and team selection. Quicker episode today because it is later in the week. I was actually sick on Wednesday, and then yesterday was Thanksgiving. So getting this out today before the free practice one and the spring qualifying session start. So we will just get right into it, quick and snappy this week. But housekeeping at first. Get on the F1 Fantasy Community Survey hosted by FanAmp and the Fantasy Formula. Fantastic resource that we can let the F1 developers know our thoughts about this game that we all love, sometimes don't love as much. But if you don't love some stuff, let them know in the survey. Click the link in the description below. Type away your thoughts, your fears, your hopes, your dreams about F1 Fantasy and get on that. We are about halfway to the goals, or the goal that we want for the amount of responses to the survey. So you can let your voice be heard in the F1 game and shape it for the future season. So click that link, make your voice heard, and get on it right now. Going over to the Qatar Grand Prix preview, Lusail International Circuit, 5.41 kilometers, 57 laps, 16 corners, 1 DRS zone. First Grand Prix here was in 2021. Sprint race here last year. Last year it was in, I think, October, maybe late September, and the temperatures were sky high, mandatory 3 pit stop race. Hopefully it will not be that way this season, with it being a couple of months later in the year, November 29th, compared to earlier in the year last season. So we will see how it all plays out on the track. However, if we're looking at the weather right now, 19 degrees today, 20 degrees on Saturday, 20 degrees on Sunday. That's all in Celsius. And taking a look back at the 2023, we're looking at 15 degrees cooler for this race than it was last year. So 2023 Friday, it was 35 degrees, 34 degrees on Saturday, and 35 degrees again on Sunday. So the driver should be in a better position physically, mentally, being able to kind of cope with the stresses and kind of physical requirements of getting in that F1 car this weekend compared to last season. So hopefully that leads to better racing, less DNFs, less retirements, less costly penalties, which you can let F1 know about in that fan survey that I was just telling you about. So make sure you click on that, get that done. But yeah, temperatures should be a lot cooler this year. So it'll be interesting to see if we learn anything from that on Friday in the free practice one and the sprint qualifying later that night. Going over to the tire compounds here, C1, C2, C3, the 3 hardest compounds you can have in F1 as of right now this season. And that's kind of where I want to start with the preview. So looking back at the 5 races that have already had this compound this season, it's Bahrain, Japan, Spain, Silverstone, and the Netherlands. Japan and Silverstone on the Pirelli preview said that this was kind of Qatar will be very similar to Japan and the Great Britain races this season with tire load, wear, that kind of thing. So in Bahrain, it was Verstappen, Perez, Sainz. In Japan, it was Verstappen, Perez, Sainz. Spain here, Verstappen, Norris, Hamilton, 1, 2, 3. At Silverstone, it was Hamilton, Verstappen, Norris. Netherlands, Norris, Verstappen, Leclerc. I only said one person's name 5 times there, and it was Max Verstappen, the 4-time champion, newly crowned 4-time champion, back-to-back champion of F1. So congrats to him. I don't think I actually said that in the race review earlier this week for Las Vegas. And yeah, Red Bull just kind of know how to get it done. It feels like when we forget about them in F1 Fantasy since the summer break, they just pop out of nowhere. Maybe I should stop saying them. It's just more like Max. So if you are on a 3-time chip this weekend and you have the budget, I really recommend kind of sneaking Max in there as a differential. I know McLaren, the Papaya guys, are going to be very popular this weekend. Everyone is saying that they are supposed to be the favorites in Qatar. However, that was supposed to be the case last weekend in Las Vegas with Ferrari, and it didn't really work out that way. So yeah, just got to see this action, see what happens in sprint qualifying, see what happens in free practice one, what kind of data we can get our hands on over those two sessions. But I would not count out Max Verstappen this weekend as a choice in F1 fantasy, especially if you're trying to make up a huge gap in overall ranking, mini leagues, whatever you're looking at. He may be worth the budget stretch, but how can we get there? We're going to get into that in team selection. Going over to the constructors here for hard choices on hard compounds in Bahrain. This is by F1 Fantasy Points, thanks to f1fantasytools.com. The last graphic was the actual podium. Bahrain, Japan, Spain, Great Britain, and Netherlands again. Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes at Bahrain. Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren in Japan. Red Bull, McLaren, Mercedes in Spain. In Great Britain, it was McLaren, Red Bull, Mercedes. And then in Netherlands, it was McLaren, Ferrari, Red Bull. Red Bull, once again, popping up all over the place there, 5 times there. McLaren with 4, Ferrari with 4, Mercedes only a couple of times. So I know there's a lot of kind of talk in the community about maybe going with Mercedes. Is the cooler weather from last year going to help them out? However, the track temperatures are probably going to be double what we were looking at in Las Vegas last week, where Mercedes was flying. So I said on the live stream before, and Mercedes is consistently inconsistent. So I wouldn't bank on them having a great weekend this weekend. However, it could still happen. We're just going to have to kind of wait until the free practice and sprint qualifying sessions later today. But once again, Red Bull right there. I'm not sure if I'd be able to go with them as the constructor. That is a pretty big budget stretch. I'd much rather try and make way to get in Max Verstappen, which does cost more, but I'm not entirely trusting Checo Perez at this moment in time. McLaren going to be strong. They've kind of been climbing up as you can see in Bahrain, they weren't even the top 3. Then Japan, they were 3rd, Spain 2nd, and then Silverstone and Zandvoort, they were 1st in the F1 Fantasy Constructor standings. So McLaren's probably going to be pretty template Timmy this weekend. Can't blame anyone for going there, especially if you're preserving rank, protecting rank. I think I would still stick with them, even if you're trying to take punts. It's probably not worth the differential. I don't think Red Bull or Mercedes or Ferrari will come close to them, but it might be better to take a punt on your second constructor this weekend in F1 Fantasy. Going over to Kings of Tier C, we haven't really checked in on the TC drivers in a while, so broke down some stats here: points per race for the season, points per race since the summer break, and points per race over the last 3. I've got the gold, silver, bronze here on the YouTube channel. So if you are listening on the audio side, flip over to the YouTube channel, F1 Fantasy Pole Position, and check out this graphic. For the season, leading the way, slightly skewed by the fact he's only had 4 races, Liam Lawson, 8.7 points per race. But then it's Kevin Magnussen, 6.9, and Esteban Ocon at 6.5. Since the summer break, it's been Ocon at 8.9, then Lawson also at 8.7, and Kevin Magnussen at 7.3. And then over the last 3, it's been Esteban Ocon, 13.7, Kevin Magnussen at 10, and Pierre Gasly at 8, despite a DNF in Las Vegas. Interestingly enough here, as you can, if you look at the graphic, this is all based on points. So it's Ocon, Stroll, Magnussen, Hulkenberg, Tsunoda, Lawson, Gasly, Albon, Zhou Guanyu, Colapinto, and Valtteri Bottas. Alexander Albon, negative 1.1 points for the season, negative 4.7 since the summer break, negative 16.3 over the last 3 races. If you can get away from the Williams driver, I would try as hard as possible. I would honestly prefer going with Zhou Guanyu, Frank Colapinto, Valtteri Bottas, and just having the extra budget. I mean, even the little budget you can save could possibly move you up from Lewis Hamilton or an Oscar Piastri to a Lewis Hamilton or something like that. If you want to go differential this week, Alexander Albon right now with Williams up against the cost cap. I'm assuming with how much damage they've had and how terrible it's been over the last 3 races for Alexander Albon, I can't see Williams thriving here this weekend, but we'll see. Once we get some track data, Yuki Tsunoda has been pretty good, still negative 3.4 since the summer break. He's been unlucky with some DNFs. Pierre Gasly's been in good form despite a DNF in the Las Vegas Grand Prix last weekend. He did finish 3rd in qualifying and while he was falling down the field, a little bit. It was pretty tough luck for him to suffer that DNF. But yeah, Zhou Guanyu here, last three, 7 points per race, 5.2 since summer break, 3.2 on the season. He's not the king of the overtakes like he was in 2023 F1 Fantasy, but that kind of asset right there, Zhou Guanyu, not bad at all. Nico Hulkenberg is skewed because of that disastrous Brazilian Grand Prix, negative 5.3 points per race, but it's still a great option in F1 Fantasy. So while we're talking about kings of tier C, it's time to kind of get into some team selection with two different teams at two different budgets. So here is the T1 squad, 6,200 in the world, 129 million in the bank here. Last week, as you can see, went triple Ferrari, worked out kind of okay. I got a 500 place green arrow. Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, Franco Colapinto, Valtteri Bottas, and Nico Hulkenberg were in the lineup with Ferrari and McLaren as the constructors. I got 3 free transfers with the squad, so ultimate flexibility, like I've been saying, has been really nice to kind of just roll and just kind of always having an option to adjust rather than feeling like I need to be locked in to certain moves heading into the weekend. So it might be a Ferrari exodus here. That's what we're looking at around the F1 Fantasy world. Leclerc, Sainz, and Ferrari could all come out, and I could easily bring in Lando and George Russell, and that gives me 25.6 million in the bank to bring in Mercedes. They look really good, so that double McLaren, double Mercedes gets keep Nico Hulkenberg, which I consider a win. I can't get to Zhou Guanyu, which is a little bit of a bummer. I'd love to get Valtteri Bottas out of that squad. Franco Colapinto can stay in as well. I mean, if I did want to go down to Zhou Guanyu, then I could keep Ferrari. I was playing around with a little bit of the squad earlier, and I can't get to Red Bull. I'm 0.7 short. That would mean a downgrade of Lando to Oscar. And I'm kind of in the mode where I need to almost preserve like going against the 3X and 2X or the extra DRS boost guys this weekend. There could be a huge gap building there. So I need to do my best to kind of make sure I can stay within touching distance of those guys that kept those chips. So as you can see here, it's going to leave me 0.7 short of getting to George Russell, which would be ideal if this is kind of where you have to go. Cover off McLaren a little bit. I really like Max as a differential this weekend. I can't get to him, but if you can, or I can't get to him in my T1 squad, if you can get to him in any of your squads, I would highly suggest that. Just think that Red Bull, like Max has locked up the Drivers' Championship. Like I'm not saying that he would be a driver that's driving tight under pressure or anything like that, but he has almost nothing to play for except just bagging more wins. So I'd expect him to kind of go out and get that like sprint. He's always good at the sprint race. Won't be expecting like any pit stops in the sprint race or anything like that. And then just in general, he brings it on Sundays. As you saw from that chart that I had earlier, he was in the top 3 for all 5 races that have used this kind of compound already this season. And Red Bull have done pretty dang well as well. But I can't get there. So that's going to leave me over here kind of going between the triple McLaren, which is a easy lineup fix there. I can go there. Leaves me 1 free transfer if I kept Ferrari. Like if Ferrari and Mercedes don't look that different, it's not a huge problem. I don't think I can get from Zhou Guanyu. Yeah, I could get to Albon, but not to Pierre Gasly, unfortunately. If I want to go down from Oscar to say another driver, like if George Russell looks good, if we're just building on the back of his win in Las Vegas, that gives me a little bit more options for the back markers here. So like I could keep Nico Hulkenberg, Yuki Tsunoda, Liam Lawson, Pierre Gasly. I don't mind this lineup. It does cover off all of like everything except Red Bull, which I really am only threatened by Max. But if McLaren looks super strong, I think I'm just going to be rolling with triple papaya in this lineup here, which will mean that I need to get rid of Nico Hulkenberg and go down to Zhou Guanyu here, which I don't particularly mind. Joe's been pretty good recently. As I was saying, 7 points average over the last 3 races. And then look here, like since the second race after the summer break, 4, 7, 6, 6, 7, 9, 5. Like just kind of getting it done. Went down 0.1 last week. And with the moves, like leaving 1.1 million in the bank, leaving a free transfer in the bank for Abu Dhabi, just having the ultimate flexibility for the final race of the season with my T1 squad as I somehow try to sneak in to the top 5,000 in the world. It's going to be tough. The thing that also kind of gives me pause on this team is this doesn't really, it keeps me within touching distance if everything goes according to plan. However, if you're taking a punt, I really don't mind going against triple McLaren. I'd probably keep Lando and McLaren in there, like double McLaren. But if you want to take a punt on Oscar Piastri, like get him or get Carlos Sainz or Lewis Hamilton or George Russell. And instead, if you're just thinking that one Oscar Piastri DNF for those managers who are going to go try cover him off, maybe like I am, or that will have the 2X on him, that would be a disastrous weekend for those managers, myself included. But if you don't have Oscar, if you have George, even if he gets like a 4th or 5th place, like that's a huge swing in points. So if you are looking to make up massive amounts of points in overall rank or mini leagues, I don't mind getting away from triple McLaren. They could look dominant, but there are 3 racing sessions this weekend, including a sprint where the very heavy DNF penalty of negative 20 points comes into it. I don't really enjoy like gambling on people DNFing and stuff like that in my F1 fantasy squad. But if you are looking for some huge swings, you will have to go against triple McLaren this weekend or whatever the template ends up being in Abu Dhabi next weekend. But this is probably going to be the lineup here. I'll probably, depending on Ferrari versus McLaren or Mercedes, Ferrari pretty pessimistic after the Las Vegas Grand Prix, saying that they're probably looking at P5, P6 as the best case scenario for Qatar. But stranger things have happened in F1 this season and F1 fantasy in particular. So don't cross out Ferrari just yet. We've got some racing to get done today. We've got some sprint qualifying, that kind of stuff. We'll get the data, the sims, all that fun stuff. 129 million from this team. Let's go check out my T3 squad. Over here with the big boy cost cap of 136.8 million, or at least compared to my T1 squad. I know there's teams in the world there that are rocking like 142, $143 million budgets. So great job by them. This is where I was last weekend. Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, Pierre Gasly, Nico Hulkenberg, Franco Colapinto, Ferrari and McLaren as the constructors. 2 free transfers here. However, I do have the wild card in my back pocket, which is going to shake up the squad where I can bring in Max Verstappen this weekend and possibly Valtteri Bottas, Zhou Guanyu, Ferrari. I can kind of go Ferrari or Mercedes. Doesn't really matter all that much. Go with a cheaper option. And then I could get up to Pierre Gasly or Liam Lawson here with Zhou Guanyu instead. If I kept Zhou Guanyu, Valtteri Bottas doesn't really get me anywhere. I could get to Albon, but I'm really, really hesitant of going double Williams with just their kind of stuff that's going on here. But this team is top 700 in the world, and it's my T3 squad, so I can take a punt on it, feel okay about it, and I think I'm gonna get to this lineup here with the wild card. I don't know about Mercedes, Ferrari. That's gonna be a Friday evening decision, Saturday morning decision, kind of thing. But yeah, that would likely get Max Verstappen on the 2X here. I guess the thing is I can actually get rid of Franco Colapinto, and that would give me more money, but still 0.6 short of Pierre Gasly there. So keep Colapinto in there. But this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. Max Verstappen, if you can get to him, I really like having him in your squad this weekend. There's a world where I could also get Red Bull in this squad with the wild card, but that probably means I'm getting away from Max, which I think is the strongest Red Bull asset. And I don't really like, this is kind of the punt that I want to take this weekend with Max Verstappen, barring any insanely bad data in FP1 and the sprint qualifying. But let me know your lineup decisions in the comments below chip strategy this weekend is just smoke them if you got them. Extra DRS, limitless, all that fun stuff. Extra DRS, like I said, is really safe to just go with McLaren. If you're using extra DRS, I wouldn't take a punt. Like the differential will be that you're playing a chip. So that's great for y'all that still have that. I do not have any chips left. So slightly hoping for some wackiness, but I really don't want any DNFs. Like it should, like the F1 fantasy season should not be affected by DNFs as heavily as it is, and it would be a shame for all the people that have like done some tremendous planning, long-term planning to get to this point in Qatar with the extra DRS boost for it to like kind of all fall apart. I will clip this back if something wild happens, and you can all throw tomatoes at your computer screens while watching me and run me out of town should a McLaren guy DNF. But I hope they don't. But yeah, just limitless. Also, like the differential will be having like if you're on limitless, McLaren, Red Bull, Max, Lando, Oscar, and then fill in whoever looks better out of Russell, Hamilton, Sainz, Leclerc, and even Checo Perez. Although Checo probably not. I don't think either. Autopilot would be good here for Lando versus Max, just depending on where you're going. No negative is also useful in a sprint with the warmer temperatures. The cars shouldn't be as bad as last year, but you never know what's going on there. But yeah, this is kind of my thoughts with my T3 squad. One last reminder for lineup lock here. Local time 5 p.m., UK time 2 p.m., USA Eastern 9 a.m. That is tomorrow, November 30th. So set your clocks on the East Coast, and don't forget about that in the UK or local time there in Qatar. Hopefully not as hot as it was last year, but really looking forward to Friday's data that we're going to get out of free practice 1 and the sprint qualifying. So much so that I'm going to put together a final thoughts video tomorrow morning. It might be live on YouTube. It might be pre-recorded. Depends what time I wake up and kind of get all the data together. But there will be one last piece of content coming out of the YouTube channel this week before Qatar, just because no live stream. I'm going to be at work tomorrow during the sprint, which is a bummer. But yeah, I will be putting together a final thoughts video tomorrow morning. I doubt it's going to be tonight, but yeah, tomorrow morning. It'll be live on YouTube or just pre-recorded and posted there probably by 9 a.m. Germany time. So that's going to be 8 a.m. UK time. And yeah, 3 a.m. Eastern. So hopefully you're not staying up for that if you've got to wake up and watch a sprint race at 9 a.m. on the East Coast. And once again, get that fan amp and the Fantasy Formula F1 Fantasy Community Survey done. You can do it while you're watching this. You can do it while you're watching free practice. It really doesn't take that long, and it's going to make a huge, huge difference to F1 Fantasy in 2025 and beyond. So make sure you get your voice heard. Let me know in the comments. That way, next season, when you're watching these videos and you're complaining, I can be like, yes, I know that you put your name down for the F1 Fantasy community. So just let me know if you get that done, and tell your friends. You're all together right now on the East Coast or in America for Thanksgiving. So even just like get those responses in. If you got anyone that has any F1 Fantasy knowledge or like wants to play the game, just let them know about this survey and get that done. So please, please, please complete that survey. It is going to help us all out a lot for 2025. But that will do it for today's kind of quicker, not really that quick episode of the Qatar Grand Prix preview and team selection. Like I said, I will be back tomorrow with a quick wrap up of all the Friday data. If we've got any sims, if we've got any F1.com practice debrief data as well, and just the final thoughts on if anything has changed from now at 8 a.m. Germany time to tomorrow at like 8 a.m. Germany time. But follow me on all social media at F1 Fantasy UN. I will have the Rotoballer preview and the predicted finishing order out today as well. So go check me out there on rotoballer.com for all my written F1 Fantasy content. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're slowly building there. So yeah, spread the word that F1 Fantasy pole position is out there to help your F1 Fantasy teams. But once again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I will talk to you tomorrow.